Hello, and welcome to the Total Mental Performance Podcast, the one and only mindset podcast dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs and coaches master their mindset, giving you insider access to industry leaders around their psychology, their campfire stories, and the mindset required to be successful in this business. I'm your host, Kieran O'Neill, mental performance coach and founder of Total Mental Performance, the world's fastest growing specialist mindset service dedicated to the fitness industry. So, without further ado, let's lean in and listen. Yes, team. Welcome to another episode of the Total Mental Performance Podcast. Today, I'm very excited. And I'm a little bit selfish with these podcasts sometimes because I love to find people with fascinating backgrounds and ask them about their mindset, their mental performance, and what got them there. And today we have Martin Brady. Martin is the founder of the Built to Lead program. We have something in common. He's also an international boxer. And then on top of that, he spent 17 and a half years in the army as a sniper. And I've always been fascinated by snipers. The patience that's required to really go that distance. It's just fascinating and mind-blowing. So Martin, mate, it's an absolute honor to have you on. Thank you so much for making time. We have a lot of fun today.
Yeah, Kieran, thanks so much for having me on. Really looking forward to jumping into it. Obviously, I've listened to a lot of your podcasts already, and I've heard a lot of the stuff that you've done inside Joe Parsons' program. So really looking forward to seeing what we can get out of this conversation today.
100%, mate, 100%. So where did it all start for Martin? Where in the world did you grow up?
Yes, so I grew up in Belfast initially, which is the north of Ireland, and now I live in the south of Ireland, so complete one end of the country to the other. My initial childhood was, very underweight, very skinny child. I think from the age of around 16, 17, believe it or not, I was still like 51 kg, thereabouts, joining the army. So initially, my childhood, always very underweight, lack confidence, have a huge birthmark in the side of my face, which literally covered the full side of my face whenever I was growing up in my early childhood years. And that kind of brought me down the route of getting into boxing. So always into sport. I was always into sport, be it soccer, be it rugby, be it running. And I was always very athletic. But it was something about the boxing, just that individual sport, and it gave me the chance to grow, develop confidence and stuff that really drew me in, So I was fascinated by it, and it was something that I was massively dedicated and committed to. Won a number of national titles, boxed internationally for Ireland, beat some really good guys who we might mention later on, some good current world champions and stuff, obviously back in the amateur days. And from there, transitioned into the military career 2 weeks after my 17th birthday, believe it or not. So I was still a child joining the army. So that's pretty much my childhood in a nutshell.
Oh, mate, there's so much to go into. But let's start with boxing just quickly. So I haven't had anyone on that I can actually really talk boxing with, but it feels like boxing really sets you up for life. And I'm writing a little book about how boxing and business are the same sport. And I'm sure you'll agree, because with boxing, you have to be able to adapt to what's in front of you, your opponent. You have to adapt to the market, because the market's going to change all the time. You're going to get a lot of love when you're doing well. When shit hits the fan or you lose a fight, you're only as good as your last fight, and you really find out who your friends are. You can't. And my coach used to say, there's loads of like little boxing sayings that go around all the gyms, but one was, if you cheat, you're only cheating yourself. There's so much to go into it. I literally see business, boxing, coaching, they're the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. With boxing, even what we talk about a bit later on is being a sniper and stuff, it's very similar, because I find that boxing, like, yes, everyone knows you'll develop more belief in yourself, you'll develop more confidence, you develop more courage, because it takes a lot to step into boxing ring at any level. But it's the resilience to failure. You're going to lose fights, especially as an amateur. You're going to lose fights, and it's going to hit your confidence. And like you said, you really get an understanding of who's in your corner, who's really backing you, and it develops that resilience to failure that I think people need in business, that I think people need, within the coaching industry and within any aspect of life. If you can become resilient to failure, there's not a huge amount of, fears or limitations that's really going to hold you back if you've got that in your back pocket, essentially. And I think that's something everyone develops from boxing, regardless of what level you're at. Obviously, you've got guys that are very driven, and they don't want to fail. And, they have the Michael Jordan, the Pink, the Anthony Joshua, the Floyd Mayweather, the Ronaldo mindset. But by and large, a huge amount of people will develop a massive resilience to failure from a sport like boxing, I believe,
Without a doubt. And there's something about, I don't know if you ever boxed in a home show where you had your ass kicked. There's something about having the shit punched out of you from your friends, your family, or even sparring, you start to
as you spend more time in a gym and as you start to work your way up, you become one of the top dogs there. So obviously other boys and girls will come, or girls, or other guys can come to the gym, they can try and take your head off. And sometimes somebody will come in the gym and they're genuinely better than you, and they're just absolutely punch you from pillar to post. And on the flip side of that, of course, you can go into other people's backyards and do that. But I think that public failure, and it's on such a deep spiritual level insofar as being physically beaten by another human being publicly, something about that where I struggled with a period of depression and eating disorder, and I tried to take my own life. But outside of that period, I've not come across anything as hard as boxing. In the world of business, in the world of life, of course, there's life tragedies and things like that. But outside of that, I feel like it just sets you up, you know?
Absolutely. The army, the military, I've never once cried. Business never made me cry. Even when my children were born, I didn't cry. Boxing, right? I can count back to numerous occasions when I sat in a dressing room, absolutely crying my eyes out. And it wasn't because you were hurt. No boxer fears getting hurt in the ring. You never fear getting hurt. It's the fear of loss. It's the fear of failure. It's the fear of rejection and all those negative emotions that you feel that are attached to losing. And it's one of the most humbling experiences in the world, you know. But like I said, it's something that you can really, really develop a huge amount from, is the losses. They say you learn more from a loss than you will from a victory or from a win. And it's so true, because when you think back to every single loss, you overanalyze everything, and you really, really do dig in, and you learn a huge amount about the character and the personality that you really are, you know?
100%. And I don't know about you, but that's where I discovered my first coach. My first coach was a guy called Martin Calvert, incredible man, God rest his soul, absolute, like, passed away. And that changed me as a fighter. That really broke me. My first 12 fights, had 12, 110, got to 2 national finals. And when he died, I lost 3 fights in a row, and it just rattled me completely, like changed everything. But he was the first person to sort of hold up a pair of pads and goes, "You can do this.
Yeah.
No, you can do this." And I think as coaches, we're lucky to have that. Yeah. Because most people don't get that until much later on in life. But if you get that as, you know, a 10, 11, 12-year-old, it's incredible, isn't it?
It's life-changing. My coach actually passed away this day last week. I went to his funeral on Monday this week, and like, believe it or not, like, I carried his coffin, you know, I read at his funeral, and of all the people I've worked with in the world, I've paid thousands and thousands to work with top coaches in various different fields and avenues and industries, and even back in the military, work with some incredible leaders. He's the most impactful person I've ever worked with, and I don't just say that because he's now passed away and he's longer with us. He genuinely had a bigger impact on me than anyone else. I was his first ever Irish champion, and I was his first ever boxer to represent Ireland. It was 20 years to the day when he died that I actually boxed. It was against Stephen Smith from England, who I boxed against. My first ever international fight was against Stephen Smith, Swifty Stephen Smith. And that medal, I put that medal into the coffin with him on Monday morning, you know, because it's a unique piece of history between two of us that we achieved together. But like, the medal was just an item. It's just a materialistic object. It's the character, it's the traits, it's everything that I learned from him and took from him forward me in every aspect of life that I still use in my own coaching program today, is what you kind of hold on to, you know. But it's incredible, the relationship you will build with a boxing coach. I don't think there's many other sports that would really, really have it, you know.
I know how impactful firsthand, how deep that is. So mate, I want to send love to you. I want to send love to all the boys in the gym. Let me ask you this. How many people were at his funeral?
There was a big funeral. There was a big turnout. It was close to 350 to 400 people. Very, very well represented. There was a guard of honor by the local boxing club and stuff like that, you know. But it was good to see, because with boxing coaches, it's purely about contribution. There's no other need that they're fulfilling.
No money involved.
Yeah. Significance doesn't come into it. There's no financial gain. There's nothing for them to gain from it but contribution. And a large percentage of the people they're working with, it's underprivileged children, you know, who may be from disadvantaged backgrounds. And I seen a huge amount of that on Monday. I seen so many people, and my phone didn't stop, because obviously I was probably one of his longest serving boxers. I was with him for close to 12 years in total. And so many guys, you know, from all different backgrounds who helped through the years, you know, people with drug addictions, people with all problems in the world. And for him, it was never about ability. You were never prioritized because you were a champion. You were never prioritized because you had ability or because you could punch or you could move or anything like that. Every single person was treated the same. Every single person got into his car, went sparring, you know, enjoyed the events and all of the rest of it, you know. But it's amazing to see the respect that they do have whenever they do pass away, you know.
That's why I asked, because at Martin's funeral, it really, I was 15 when that happened, 16. And what I really realized is I want to have the same impact on the world that he had.
Yeah.
Because that legacy that he left behind, all those boys that he trained, and not just that, the wider community as well. It just, a great coach can completely shake your reality. And when you have that, your life can never be the same. And of course, we're always going to, I call it the boardroom. You always need a boardroom, experts that have been in the game 10, 20 years longer than you, doing stuff. And even if they haven't been in the game that much longer than you, they've been learning from people that have been in the game for much longer than both of you put together.
Yeah.
And when you have that boardroom, it just completely changes the game. And I know how powerful those coaches can be. So it really gives you a head start because you understand what real coaching is about. You haven't read it from a textbook, you've seen it, you've received it, and you've embodied that. And I think being able to take that into your coaching today is just irreplaceable.
Yeah, it's incredible. I actually coach one of the guys in my program. He runs a fairly successful boxing club, and he messaged me on Monday evening, and he said, "Do you know what? I was so moved by what you did today when you put that medal into the coffin." He said, "I fast forward my life." He said, 40 years from now, he said, "I would be so proud if one of my boxers would do that for me." Do you know? And again, it shows why people are in coaching in the first place. It's purely about contribution. It's purely about giving, and getting the best out of other people. You know.
I think that's where a lot of the fitness industry in particular gets lost. I think they get distracted by status and cash. And don't get me wrong, we can. There's nothing wrong with acquiring wealth and investing that and giving that back to others or keeping it for yourself, whatever. But I think people get into coaching because they want to help others, and then they enter environments where there's lots of people that are better than them in many different ways. And you'll experience this in boxing. Survival of the fittest, probably the same in the army as well. It is survival of the fittest. When that happens, a lot of people lose sight of why did they get into coaching. Those amateur boxers, they're amateur boxing coaches. They're there to make impact. They're there to pass on what somebody gave to them. And that comes from a place of compassion, comes from a place of love, comes from a place of drive. But I think in the industry, people get so caught up in how many clients they have, how many transformations they're getting that they can post up, and then how much money they can make. And they forget that we're put here to help others. So I 100% think it's just where we're getting lost and where we can get distracted. And a lot of our work with coaches is helping them get that wider perspective on who they are as a human being that's attaching the outcome. It's that validation, which part of them feels like validation from things like cash or number of clients or whatever. But when you go back to those guys, it's just love of the sport. It's just passing it on and creating a better world, isn't it? And you can't beat that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if there's one thing fitness coaches could learn, it's like that. Model a boxing coach, model an amateur boxing coach, model their values, model their needs, model what they actually get from the whole coaching aspect. Why do they volunteer, night after night, week after week? Why do they travel the length and breadth of countries? Why do they get on a plane and bring kids all over the world? It's purely about the athlete. If you look at people who've coached top Olympic athletes, we don't even know their names. They're not marquee people. They don't walk down the street and get acknowledged. If you look at the people that were in Katie Taylor's corner for her Olympic final, they could walk down the street in O'Connell Street in Dublin. Nobody's going to know who they are. They're not in it for that. They're in it for the athlete. They're in it for the boxer. They're in it to make them a success, and that's what I love about the sport, especially on an amateur level,
100%. You just can't beat it. You just absolutely can't beat it. And you go to a boxing show, I don't know if you drop in, and when I'm back in the UK, I try and drop into one. I've kind of grown out of it, so I don't know any active amateur kids in it anymore, sadly. But I always used to try and drop in, and you see one of these old boys in the corner, and the whole room has incredible respect for them, and you just know. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I used to be trained by a guy called Mick Delaney, who trained. You probably never have you heard of Mick?
He trained James DeGale and stuff, I think.
That's the man. That's the guy. He's an absolute legend. I had a feeling you might know him. Most people don't know. They go, Mick who?
I was a boxing anorak.
trained George Groves, changed George De Gea, Daniel Dubois. You know, I was lucky enough to have him in my corner for a few fights for Del U. Incredible guy. But if he's walking down the street, you'd have no idea the impact that he's had on these men, on these women. Just amazing. That is what coaching is. Yeah. Incredible. So tell me, how did you go from from boxing into the army, and how was that transition? Would you say the mindsets required were very similar, or was there a change?
Big change. Whenever I transitioned from boxing into the army, it was at a stage where with boxing, I was boxing competitive. I was on a junior high performance team. So, I wasn't boxing at senior level or anything like that. There was funding involved, obviously, by the IABA and their sports council. There was funding involved where boxers would be selected and be funded on a yearly basis. And I wasn't selected for funding in 2003 for that upcoming season. So I was at a stage where I had to earn a living. I actually skipped school, like literally hundreds of days each year from first year right up to train for boxing. It was my big goal in life. I'm like, I'm going to be a professional boxer. I'm going to be a world champion. I had all my eggs in that basket. And when I realized it was going to happen, I had to make a career shift. So my dad and my brother, they're both within military and ex-military respectively now. And so it was an easy transition for me. I'm like, you know what, I'll pursue a career in the military. So it was actually 2 weeks after my 17th birthday that I did join the military. I was probably one of the skinniest recruits because I was boxing at bantamweight. So it was 54 kg as a junior boxer. Whenever I joined, like the uniforms were swinging off me. Massively masculine environment, well outside my comfort zone. So I had to make big mindset shifts. I had to really adapt within that military environment from the very early days,
All of a sudden, you've gone from a big fish in the gym. And even if you consciously or unconsciously know that is the case, you have respect to, well, we don't care about that anymore. And you're being rebuilt from the ground up. That's hard. That's really hard to do.
Yeah, I went from Irish boxing champion. If I walked down the street within my local town, everyone knew me at that time because I was the only Irish champion within the town. We have a population of around 11,000 people, and I was the only Irish boxing champion in the town. There was a civic reception the year before. The last person who got one in was Sonia O'Sullivan for winning an Olympic silver medal. Okay, so it was a civic reception for the council. So winning that title was a big deal because it was the first title that the club ever achieved. So I went from that into a military environment where, like, for the first 3-4 weeks, I was the joke of the platoon. I'm a skinny guy. I'm the guy with the birthmark. My nickname was Mini because I was so small, So I went from that to becoming almost the joke of the platoon. And that's something that I had to learn to develop really quick. And like I said, make mindset shifts, which we'll probably get into throughout the podcast,
100%. And I think coaches that go that traditionally are gym floor based that go into online, I think they do experience that too. But they weren't, maybe perhaps haven't experienced that before. Perhaps they were fully booked as an offline in the gym PT, or perhaps, in their town, they were quite well known or whatever. And they go online and they see thousands of coaches and they're like, holy shit. And I think when you've made a transition like that so for me, that first one was England's Team GB. As you know, Team GB is obviously the whole thing, whereas when you're in England, different ball games like Championship football and Premiership football. So I went from, being my hometown, 6-time home county champion, all that stuff, national finalist many times, never quite won the title though. Never quite won the title, always lost in the finals. I think it was mindset, to be honest. It was always that, and that's obviously why I do what I do now. But when you make those jumps, when you go somewhere and you're a nobody all of a sudden, or when I moved to London, exactly the same thing. I was doing really well where I was from. Everybody knew me. I'm going to a city of 8 million people, 4 million commuters, so it's 12 million people during the week. You're about a speck of dust. A lot of coaches that are getting into online, and if you listen to this, and this is you're much earlier on, this is normal. To be comparing, to be thinking, fucking hell, who am I to be doing this? Imposter syndrome is normal. Own that. Change your relationship with that. But when you've made that transition, it's quite easy.
Absolutely. And what I would say is when you do make that transition and you go from, you were like a kind of a big fish in a small pond, and now you're in this environment where you're way outside your comfort zone. Sometimes you can be driven, you can be motivated, you can be inspired by the wrong things. They can get you places, but you might not enjoy the process along the way. Like for me in my military career, like I definitely overachieved. I was awarded the best soldier. I've got, like, literally my living room is the amount of trophies on the wall from best overall soldier in the early leadership courses. Like my first leadership course to become a corporal to train recruits, I was the youngest soldier on the course. I was literally just 19. I was just back from West Africa. So I served in Liberia for 6 months, and then I done a 9-month leadership course. And I was the youngest student, and I was awarded the best overall soldier. And that was like a pattern going out throughout my military career. When I did the sniper course, very, very same. I was awarded the best soldier, so you get a badge if you excel in the sniper course. And I did that numerous times throughout my military career. And people always thought, you're fantastic, you're flying it, you're a top soldier, you're an elite level soldier, you're very, very good at what you do. But it's whenever I look back, I didn't enjoy a huge amount of the processes because I always put massive expectations on my shoulders. And a lot of people do that as coaches today. I was driven by significance. Okay, I was driven about, you know what, I'm not going to be the skinny guy, the joke. I'm not going to be the guy with the birthmark, the underweight guy who the uniform's swinging off. I'm going to be the top dog. I'm going to be the guy that everyone looks up to in this course. I'm going to be the guy with the sniper badge that everyone looks up to in the barrack environment. And while I was that person and I achieved those kind of accolades, there was a lot of stages throughout the process where I'm like, you know what, I'm not really enjoying this because I'm driven by the wrong things. And it's like coaching. Sometimes we get driven by significance. I have to look like I'm the best. I have to look like I'm getting the best transformations and I've got the most clients. And whenever you have that mindset, yes, you might be that person, but are you actually enjoying it? And are you meeting your own kind of like needs on a day-to-day basis, you know?
So fascinating. We have so much in our story. And I think boxers have the same mindset. There's always that inner child somewhere that didn't feel enough, didn't feel worthy, but he chases that overachievement that way. And that's what boxing's so great for, that, because it's like you have no choice but to look at my power or my strength or my speed or my raw ability. You don't have a choice because all the eyes are on you, and you go and get that accolade. When you start to realize that success isn't a trophy or an accolade or anything like that, but for me, success is a feeling. It's a state of being. It's being content. It's hitting flow state. It's doing work that you absolutely fucking love. Getting results. Everybody's in the results business. There's no two ways about it. You have to get results, or it's not going to work in any field of life. But when you go back to it, it's like, what was it that was driving that incessant, I've got to be number one, I've got to be number one, I've got to be number one. Underneath that, 99.9 times out of 10, whenever I get to that level with somebody in a one-to-one session, there's always an inner child. I didn't feel enough, I didn't feel worthy, and I had to overcompensate. And then at that point, kids make a decision. They either go, they get the message of they're not enough in some way, and they go, yeah, you're right, that's it. And they just give up, and they just accept their bit. Then there's this other sort of 25 to 30% that go, no, fuck you, I'm going to prove you wrong, which is great because it allows you to succeed and grow. But you get to a certain level, then you hit a glass ceiling, and that's not going to take you to the next level. And in my view, that's how I see things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was me. I was that person who I'm like, you know what, I'm going to prove people wrong. And even when it got to the stage where there was nobody to prove wrong, there was nobody saying you can't do it. Like when I went on a sniper course, and I was thinking to myself, you know what, because when you're doing a sniper course, it's a very, very intense course mentally more than physically. All sniper courses in all military organizations globally will have a very, very similar syllabus. Every single person, it doesn't matter what nationality, what uniform they wore, they will tell you a sniper course is mentally 1,000,000 times more demanding than what it is physically, because you're failing from day one. You're doing so many tests that you haven't even been trained to pass. You do a sniper course from day one, test after test after test. You haven't even been shown how to pass these tests. It's getting you resilient to failure. It's training you to become resilient to actually failing, okay, and overcoming that failure, because again, it reinforces that resilience that you actually need as a sniper. So like your commander, he can rely on you in an overseas environment or whatever, because he knows you're a resilient character that's built that resolve, you know. And for me, that was one of the biggest things that I took from that, you know.
How do they pick snipers? What qualities are they looking for in individuals?
So a sniper, people, believe it or not, think that a sniper is a shooter. It's not. A sniper is a full all-round soldier. It's more of an observer. You have to be very, very good at gathering information. Okay, so your focus, your attention to detail, everything has to be very, very good. But you have to be able to do everything. You have to be able to shoot. You have to be able to navigate by day and night over all sorts of terrain. You have to be able to observe. You have to be able to judge distance. So like I'm talking down to the meter. You have to be able to judge distance to targets, you know, literally from the naked eye. That's the skill that you're trained. So there's so many different skills that you have to develop as as a fully fledged sniper. But in terms of actually selecting it, there's criteria. So every year, each barracks within most military organizations might run a sniper course, or there could be a unit, so a training unit like a weapons wing, that could run military sniper courses, okay? And what happens is you need to be a marksman with your rifle. So that's the basic criteria, is you need to be a marksman with rifles. You need to have a really, really good shot with your standard infantry rifle. And if you have that, you obviously apply for the sniper course, and then it's up to your unit commander. Your unit commander is going to pick people based on personality, based on, I suppose, rate of success, because it's a very, very high failure rate. It's 80% plus failure rate. 10 people start the sniper course, 8 are going to fail. 20 people start, 16 are potentially going to fail. So if the unit commander is selecting 3 or 4 people, he has to know the people under his command, because you just want to give away 4 troops to a course for 12 weeks and all of a sudden the unit gets nothing from it. He needs passes. He needs people in the unit that he can use as assets, essentially,
Mm. And when we talk about mental performance, that's a massive mental game. That ability to concentrate, that ability to be patient, that ability to fail, that ability to miss, that ability to disassociate with failure. I always talk about the example of being like a scientist. So our philosophy at TMP is failure doesn't exist. All we are just scientists, just taking data samples. Scientists don't get annoyed when they disprove a hypothesis. And it sounds like in there, you have to almost disassociate from the failure and just go, right, fine, what's next? Right, fine, how do I adapt? Because that kid that was crying in the changing room, and I've been that guy many times, he's not going to cut it. He's not going to cut it in that. So I'm guessing by that point, you've had to be able to disassociate from that data that your mind, your body, and your eyes receive, which is a failure.
Yeah. And the thing is most people that do go on a sniper course are successful soldiers, and they're very, very good at what they do. And they're driven individuals. Like, you don't go on a sniper course if you want to be a coaster. You go on a sniper course because you want to be a winner, and you have that winner's mentality. But I remember the first week of the course, whenever I heard fail, because you line up every day after every test, you hear fail, fail, fail again. It was 2007. That was my first introduction to actually even thinking about mindset and learning about mindset. I actually went down and I bought my very, very first Tony Robbins book the first week of that course, because I heard fail so much. It was absolutely crippling me. And I genuinely could not cope with it. I couldn't deal with it. I genuinely felt like a failure. Inside, outside, I carried myself like a failure. My body language was like a failure. I can still think back coming into the barracks during the evenings at nighttime, going to my locker the first week of that course. And I was genuinely just thinking to myself, why did I actually put myself in this position? And what drove me then on that course was actually the fear of failure. I was like, you know what? I'm not going back to my unit and being a failure. What are people going to think? What are people going to say? I visualized events, walking into my unit commander's office and saying, sorry, I failed, And all of those things, I'm like, Joanne, I'm not going to let that happen. And that was actually one of the biggest things that drove me on that course to actually succeed and pass,
Yeah, 100%. So what did you take from that experience as a sniper and being out in combat and being out in action? What did you take away from all of those experiences that directly helps you as a coach today?
The biggest thing would be resilience to failure. And I know I've mentioned that a few times, but that would be the big thing that I've definitely taken from the sniper course, where you can just take so much in your stride as a result of it, because all of the different challenges, all of the different tests that you do, you're going to fail at some stage along the way. And it just definitely reinforces a level of resilience and a resolve that you have to encounter, especially in business, especially as a coach. Another thing is the changes that you make along the way. Whenever you encounter problems, right? One thing that stood out to me that one of the instructors used to always say on a sniper course, guys, you'll never solve a problem. You have to outgrow it. Okay, so we used to always say, you'll never solve a problem. You have to outgrow the problem. And it was so true. Because with your current level of thinking, and how often have you heard this as a coach, where your current level of thinking, where your current ability, if you keep failing at solving the same problem, something needs to change. And you need to be able to adapt to change. You need to be able to shift the goalpost a little bit more. And it's an analogy I use within my coaching program today, right? When I'm speaking to people about changing their mindset with something, I use the jacket. I call it the jacket effect. When you pass a sniper course, you get a sniper jacket. Okay, it's not like I don't mean a tunic. I mean like an actual barrack jacket, like a smock. It's tailored. It looks really, really nice. Okay, and it stands out. If you see someone wearing it, you know straight away that there's something different about them. And in order to get that jacket, I had to make so many mindset shifts along the way. So the analogy I use is as a teenager, or think back to childhood, think back to your very first jacket that you wore. Okay. You don't have that jacket today. You've changed it through various stages of life. And your mindset is the very same. Like I don't have the same mindset as what I had the very first week of the sniper course. I learned, developed, became resilient to failure, succeeded, stepped outside my comfort zone, had to show different characteristics, all of those things to pass the course that I took forward in the coaching industry. And the analogy I use is, in order to get that jacket, I had to make so many mindset shifts. So it's the analogy I use is, if you're thinking about changing your mindset, correlate it to that jacket. Okay. You don't want to be wearing the same jacket in 12 months down the road as what you're currently wearing now, you know?
Without a doubt. And it's a constant evolution. And everybody evolves at different paces. Some people are going through identity shifts so quickly. Some people are a little bit slower, and it's going at your pace, but 100%. There's also, I have ego is the enemy tattooed on my forearm, because ego will stop you from evolving. Ego will get in the way and go, well, why should I have to change? Yeah, but why? I'm not doing that. And sometimes ego can stop you from making those shifts. With that, getting that feedback from the outside world, a phrase that an anchor that I use. I spent 6 years in software sales in London. One of my mentors said to me, "It's just data." I said, "What do you mean?" It's just data. Everything. Reality is just data. It's all just numbers. And if your ego gets in the way, if you interpret those numbers, or if you interpret that feedback from the world, you're never gonna, in your example, bring on another jacket. You just, well, no, this is my fucking jacket. Why should I have to change? Why should I have to do this? Yeah, but it's fucking pissing down rain outside and it's freezing. You've got a summer jacket on. Yeah, I know, but it's not as nice as the one that I know, and it's safe in here. At least I know this one fits me, and you know, so it's fascinating.
But ego is one of the things that I actually had to leave behind. Whenever I was in the military, like I said earlier on the podcast, I was driven by significance. Like when I was on the sniper course and I heard about this badge, so you can pass the course as a pass. You pass. You get your certification as a sniper, and you're now a qualified sniper, and you can operate as a sniper. And then you have what's called a sniper marksman badge. Okay. And that's if you pass every test on what we call badge week, test week. And it's very, very rare that people would do that. But I was driven to pass that. But what was driving me was just significance. I wanted to be someone that had that badge on my shoulder, so I could say, you know what, not only did I pass the sniper course, I badged it. And again, it's pushing for that level of significance. And what I found is, especially transitioning into the coaching industry, that like significance in that role, it's ego driven. And if you bring that with you into a coaching environment, right, it's going to cause huge amount of conflict in terms of your values, your goals, and what you're actually looking to get out of people as a coach, you know. And that's something that I actually, like, one of the things that I learned from a sniper course that actually helped me pass the sniper course, that I'm like, you know what, this is something I actually need to park. I need to leave in the locker and kind of move on from, you know.
100%. You took the jacket off, you left the ego jacket behind.
Yeah.
And then over time, we pick up more ego jackets, and then we got to let those go. And it's just like this constant state of flow. Mindset's never done. Mental performance is never done. Identity is never done. You're in a constant shift. And if you're somebody that's a fast growth entrepreneur or a fast growth coaching business, that's happening again and again and again and again and again. And it's learning to get comfortable. All right, I'll take that jacket off, I'll put this one on. I'll take this jacket off, I'll put this one on, you know?
Yeah. You're just embracing change. You're embracing change all the time. You're shifting the goalposts. You're adapting to, you know, the fast pace that life is moving at, essentially, you know?
And it all comes back to boxing, because somebody might throw a textbook left hook, somebody will throw a long left hook. Or I used to spar with this, I think he's Italian, two-time Italian champion, Benko Fata. He's now a pro now. And he used to throw this lead uppercut. You won't be able to see this on the camera, and you have to watch this on YouTube. But he'd throw this lead uppercut. The way that he'd throw it is he'd sort of slip in there, and he'd throw his hand like that. And what I'm doing is I'm throwing a punch with my thumb facing the opponent and a lead uppercut. And it doesn't make sense. And he used to hit me with the shot, but I didn't know what he was hitting me with. I was like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, Kieran, watch this. Bang. And the first thing I threw back at him was the same shot I caught him. And you have to adapt. And I think that adaptability that you take from boxing, from styles, from technique, from tactics, like boxing gets a lot of shit. It's a bad rap. It's just two people punching each other in the face trying to cause damage. Let's not beat around the bush. There are two men trying to cause damage to each other, but there's a strategic, structured chaos that's happening, and you literally are trying to solve that puzzle. It's incredible.
And the scoring systems, like whenever I was boxing, it was computer scoring. It was like
I remember
I was
the
a tall,
days,
rangy southpaw, And I used to counter punch people in. I draw them into a left hand and a right hook. And that one combination, the most basic combination in the book for Southpaw, it won me so many titles. Then the computer system changed back to paper, where judges, they wanted aggression. I had to adapt my style. I had to be a hands up, come forward fighter that's hooking to the body. And it completely changed something that I'd actually practiced and perfected for fucking 6 or 7 years, you know?
100%. And you adapted and you evolved. And as business owners and as coaches, the more that you can just adapt, the ones that can deal with change the fastest. Incredible book, if you haven't read it, is where is it? Who Moved My Cheese? One of the best books about change I've ever read. Just learning that shit's going to change and your cheese is going to be moved, and no matter what, it's that ability to adapt. It's exactly the same if you're coaching a client one-to-one. You know, people are going to share shit with you, but you're not expected for. For what we do, a lot of trauma comes up, like you name it, beatings, kidnappings, rapes, like some of the darkest, deepest things that you could ever hear.
Yeah.
As coaches, every now and then that's going to float in, or you're going to hear something like that, or you're going to be dealing with someone with grief. You've got to be able to adapt. You've got to be able to have a network around you, or be able to have that book, or being able to go, right, okay, this is outside my wheelhouse. How am I going to respond? And you only often have seconds to decide. So when you can get to that place of, well, everything is just data, everything I'm going to do is a learning opportunity, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to do that with the best intentions. You can do that. It almost becomes like water, and you just adapt to whatever's in front of you.
Yeah, you just treat it like an experience, like anything. It's like going traveling the world. You're going to treat it like an experience. There's going to be no successes or failures with it. And I find that even if you kind of develop that kind of a mindset, or even not that mindset, because it's going to be very, very hard to have that exclusively in business. But if you even have that perception or that outlook, especially when things are a little bit unstable, that it is just an experience, something else is going to come along the way, it can be very, very a bit easier to adapt anyway, I find, you know.
100%. I've absolutely loved this. And if you've only got plans to be here in Dubai, we'll have to do this again face to face. I've got one question I love to ask guests, which is, forget about us as a team. I want to talk about total mental performance. What does the phrase, not the team, not what we do, but what does the phrase total mental performance mean to you, mean to Martin Brady? If you had it, how would you know?
Say again, if I had total mental performance.
Yeah, what does it mean to you in your model of the world?
In my model of the world, mental performance, it's being able to overcome limiting beliefs. It's being able to live with confidence, and it's being able to manage your emotions on a day-to-day basis. For me, like, even if I look at every mentally challenging situation that I've been through, be it in the military, be it in the coaching industry, the biggest things that I relied on was my ability to manage my emotions on a day-to-day basis and interpret things different. Every single one of us, right? If we look at an emotion, it's a signal to change. If I have a negative emotion, right? If I'm feeling frustrated, if I feel rejected, so say, for example, we go back to the military career in the early stages, whenever I felt rejected, that's a signal that I need to change something or I need to adapt. But so many of us don't do it. So if you look at people that don't embrace change, they're just enduring something that's negative within their life, be it an emotion, be it a behavior, be it an action that they take on a day-to-day basis. They just endure it time and time again. And for me, mental performance is being able to shift mentally to overcome that. It's like physical performance. It's like high performance as an athlete. Okay, you can adapt and you can change, like we spoke about from the boxing. You can adapt things so that you're moving, you're winning, you're progressing, you're changing your jacket, essentially, you know. And it's the very, very same for me. It's moving from you endure something negative to you can now shift mentally your thinking, how you operate, how you go about things, the actions that you take, your ability to take ownership, and start playing a different ball game, you know?
Without doubt. Without doubt. Martin, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. And we'll definitely have to get around to it at some point. Where can everybody find you?
So on Instagram, it's Martin Brady _coach. Very, very same on Facebook. And I have my own podcast, which is the Built to Lead podcast. So that's on Spotify, on Apple. You'll find that on any of those channels.
Incredible. Team, go give Martin some love, whether that's on the Instagram post, whether that's on his page, whether it's on his podcast. Go check him out. The guy's a legend of the game, fascinating background, and it was great things. Martin, mate, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Kieran. Really, really appreciate it. Really enjoyed the conversation, and definitely think we got a lot out of that. And I hope everyone listening takes a huge amount of value from it.
I have zero doubt. Big love, my friend. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Kieran.